With the explosion of ChatGPT and other AI tools, we've seen a massive rise in people wanting to create web apps that integrate with them. But just because you can, should you? The reality is we see a lot of people wanting to use AI when they actually shouldn't. In other words, they can build the functionality they need without AI and without the unnecessary layer of complexity and dependency. But on the flip side, AI can add to the sophistication of an app in a lot of cases. That's why in this video, we'll go through some examples of when it makes sense to use AI in your Bubble app and when it doesn't. And stick around until the end because ensuring you're using AI in the right situations can vastly change the future of managing your app as a whole for better or worse. All right, so when does it make sense to integrate AI into your Bubble application? Well, some of the most effective use cases that I've seen so far include parsing a lot of text content and higher analysis on that content that you wouldn't otherwise be able to do instantly. Okay, AI can process a lot of data very, very quickly, and that's valuable, right? You want AI to help you be more productive, you and your users. It doesn't have to do the work for you completely, but if it can support you, that's a very valuable role that it can play in your app. And that's worth integrating something like that into your application. Now, a couple of examples of what I mean by parsing and analysis. First, summarizing content. If you have an app where there's a lot of user-generated text, let's say that users are having conversations with each other, you've built an in-app messaging system, or there is a commenting system, maybe in a team environment, project management, right, where users are making comments on things that they're working on together. Or an application system where different users have to jot down notes that they send to each other for review and approval, or even just going through dense documentation that has been loaded into the app. AI can receive all of this content and send back to you a summarized report, essentially, right? A response that helps you see what the insights are, helps pull out all of the key takeaways, find the trends, what's the common thread in all of this content here. It can help your users make decisions much, much more effectively, right? So that your users don't have to spend time sifting through all of that on their own. So part of that is just productivity, it's speed, right? And it's actually finding consistency in all of that content. The next example is breaking down communication barriers. Look, AI can translate, which is incredibly valuable. Not only can it translate text from one language to another, but it can also transcribe audio files. And that really opens up a lot of doors. Again, this may not be the center of your application, but if you have users that are all over the world that need to communicate and collaborate with each other, this is a game changer for scaling up your app, allowing a larger user base to use your application. This is a fantastic use case of using AI, is having translations be a part of the overall functionality. And then we have correcting, to an extent, human error, especially when it comes to user-generated text content. You can have AI correct grammar, spelling, punctuation mistakes. These are more mechanical components, right? The AI doesn't necessarily need to make any commentary on the content of that text, but to help your users polish off their writing, especially if this content's going to be published in important places. You're sending an important email, it's going to go to a publication, it's going to go live on a blog or something like that. This is where AI can also help users be much more productive, because otherwise you would need a person to evaluate and find those errors themselves, which could easily, things could get missed. And this isn't to say that AI can't miss things as well, but if, the nature of the text content needs to be more polished, this is somewhere where it can really support your users. Now, of course, AI is not perfect. You don't want to rely on it 100% of the time to replace all human critical thinking. We're not quite there yet. But what I really want to stress here is, even though AI can do a lot of things, it doesn't always make sense to go through the integration, to put the energy into that for your application. Sometimes it's just overkill, right? You don't always need it. Bubble can handle a lot of logic, a lot of advanced and complex logic. It can perform calculations. You can set up automations. You can really sequence things to execute exactly how you need. If you need to personalize content, you have a lot of flexibility there. Okay. Now there's a few examples of content and topics that we see come up again and again where folks think that AI is the only solution when it's really not. It does depend on, what your app's needs are. In some case, if these features are more of a supporting role, try to build this logic out yourself and avoid the extra dependency in your app. Of course, if this is something that's really at the heart of your application and the whole point is to leverage AI, capabilities, that's a different story. But what I'm talking about here is pointing out the areas where you don't actually need AI to accomplish these things. Okay, so you want to make sure that you understand what your options are. The first example here is generating creative content. So things like personalized email or a product description from details that are in your database, you have all of that capability directly in the Bubble editor. You do not always need AI for that sort of thing. Those are things that we see kind of come up a lot, thinking that AI is the only solution when it's really not. You'd be surprised how much flexibility you have over custom configuring logic to generate information for your users. The next example is in matching algorithms. We see this come up a lot in recruitment platforms where applicants need to be matched with companies, or in marketplaces in general where users need to be matched with products, services, service providers, right? Other users. We've found that a lot of folks think that the only way to accomplish this is through AI, when that's simply not the case. You can absolutely create all the functionality you need behind the scenes in your data structure, in your workflows, and in your front-end design, right, to perform those searches, whether they're manual searches or they're automatic searches that are happening for the user. You can do that all in Bubble without an integration with AI. Okay. Not to mention, a lot of these things are very, very nuanced. And so if you have control over the logic, every corner of it, you're likely going to get more accurate results anyway. And again, this isn't to say that AI can't do this or it can't do it well. You just got to be strategic about where it makes sense to involve AI in your application. For example, you can create most of the logic yourself, but have AI help you parse out information from PDF documents, right? As a part of that applicant, if it's their resume or something, or if it's a product description that has been provided by the manufacturer in a document form, right? AI can help you read those documents and export that information in a structured format that lets you seamlessly integrate it into the rest of the app. The next section here is calculations. You don't need AI to do math in your app. You can absolutely create these expressions so that formulas are executed. It is up to you to create that logic. You do have to define the formulas and set up the expressions for them. It is up to you to set up the data structure. If the formulas are going to be applying to data sets in a one-off way, in a recursive way, if it's going to be a manual trigger or an automated trigger, all of these things are under your control. You absolutely do not need AI to do this stuff for you. Basically, if you can do it in a spreadsheet, you can be pretty sure that you can do it directly in Bubble. Now, what I've gone over covers some of the most common use cases we've seen people consider for AI. This isn't to say that AI can't produce great results for all of the above, but you have to be strategic in where you rely on it for your Bubble app. Just because you can doesn't always mean that you should. There's, of course, plenty of strategy on whether integrating with AI makes sense for your app, and every app is different. So to take the next steps in understanding what your app really needs, AI or not, head over to our free Scalable Apps workshop over at coachingnocodeapps.com/workshop. This workshop will help you get started with a strategic approach for building your app. The more prepared and informed you are at the start, the more valuable your app's development will be long term.